Hello, this is Dan311 and this is my official Castle Wars defending guide. The main idea of this guide is to make you guys be the most efficient at defending your flag. There are no requirements to defend your castle, but some things are highly suggested. The first thing would be a method of freezing your opponent. In old school Runescape, the most efficient way to do so is casting ancient magic ice spells or using a Zamorakian Godsword special attack. Other methods would include using enchanted blue-red bolts with jade tips, which will randomly freeze your opponent for 5 seconds unless they are immune to your attack. They can be immune to your attack by having a high agility level. And then you can use the bind, snare, and entangle spells in the regular spellbook. These are not suggested because if your opponent is using magic prayer, it cuts the time in half from 15 seconds to 7.5 seconds. So it's just less time to hold your opponent for, but it's better than nothing. And for blue-red bolts, they are low level range ammunition, it's random freezes, and if your opponent has agility, it's completely useless to use them. A second method of delaying your opponent with an actual item would be stunning. You can do this with a dragon spear or a Zamorakian spear special attack. If you guys have ever played Clan Wars, some people like the Dragon Spear and the Zamorakian Spear because you can knock out your opponent, because while they are stunned, everyone can attack your opponent and they can't heal or switch prayers in the duration of this time. This makes it useful for Castle Wars as well. You can also push your enemies off a square, which helps with some situations. A Castle Wars bracelet is also a nice addition because it increases the amount you heal with bandages by 50% and applies 20% more damage on any flag holder. This is extremely useful for killing off any flag holder. Bracelet has 3 charges and is worn until the game starts. As soon as the game starts, your bracelet will decrease by 1 charge and you will be under the bracelet effect for the duration of the rest of the game or until you leave. Most people bring a bracelet and drop it as soon as the game starts and wear a different pair of gloves for the rest of the game. As far as armor goes, if you're using a melee range build, it is best just to wear ranged armor so you can hybrid between range and melee, and you also get a higher magic defense, allowing you to avoid getting frozen by offensive mages. As for mages, you want the highest attack you can possibly get while still being able to autocast your freezing spells unless you feel comfortable with manual casting frequently. Manual casting is actually using your spell on another player individually one at a time to get the cast in. It's not recommended if you're starting out, it's just recommended if you have autocast, and you can manual cast in some situations. Most items with a higher magic offensive stats such as a mage's book and an ancient staff also have high magic defense as well, giving mages a higher chance of not being frozen by offensive mages. Now if you don't have any gear whatsoever, you can still assist your team with the items given to you at the game start, such as barricades. Barricades are an interesting item because they stop enemies from progressing forward, and there is a limit of 10 barricades that can be used at a time per team. Because of this, players try not to use all their barricades while defending so that their offensive team can use barricades as well if needed. The best barricade formation has barricades that are mandatory to destroy in order to progress forward, as well as having barricades no matter which route you go, you have to destroy the same amount in order to progress forward. The standard setup for a Saradomin base would look like this, and the standard setup for a Zamorakian base would look like this. Barricades can be destroyed in 3 separate ways. They can be attacked and destroyed if 50 damage is applied to them. The time varied on how fast you can kill a barricade depends on your stats and weapon choice, but this method usually takes longer than 5 seconds. You can burn a barricade, which happens when you use a tinderbox on a barricade, and it will stay burning for 5 seconds before disappearing. While a barricade is burning, the game will not allow you to use an explosive potion on it. The final way to destroy a barricade is using explosive potion on the barricade, which will make it instantly disappear. Now some people that have played Castle Wars for a very long time have mastered using explosive potions on the barricades in order to get through the base in a short amount of time. Because of this, people started using a tinderbox on barricades to delay that type of opponent for 5 seconds, while the defense has an opportunity to catch a freeze or stun on the opponent. But if you're just playing against unexperienced players who are just attacking the barricades, you're just making it easier for them because you're just giving them 5 seconds to get through the cades. So it's just better off if you don't burn it unless you are defending against a more experienced scorer. Because you are frequently destroying your own barricades as you are defending, it is important that you have a lot of empty inventory space to hold additional barricades. Your inventory setup should consist of items you bring before the game, such as additional weapons, runes, and potions. Armor switches are not suggested unless you are planning to be going offensively because they weigh more and waste space. When a game starts, you want to pick up 2 to 4 bandages to restore run energy throughout the game, and you want to restock on those as soon as you run out because run energy is very important. You also want to pick up a tinderbox as soon as possible, which spawns in the corner of the respawn room, or it can spawn in the corner of the resupply room, and they come back every minute. Then you want to grab 3 to 5 explosive potions because the scorers can also bring barricades as well to trap you behind them, so you might want to clear those, or you might want to collapse or clear the tunnels underground if you are chasing a flag under there. You also might want some buckets to put out some fires that are on your barricades. You can do this and relight your barricade so you can extend the time that your barricade actually lasts, or you can use a bucket on it to explode it quicker. If the scorer decides to set a kid and tinned it behind them, you can easily just use your bucket and then explode the barricade to get through. And then for the rest of your inventory, you just sort of want to fill it with barricades, and it's very important that you want to restock on your inventory when you're running low on barricades. So usually you would tell someone on the defensive end to cover your spot while you're restocking because it does take a little while. Now if you're a magic defender, you want to be next to the flag or the target closest to the flag at all times. You want to watch for passes, and these can easily be clicked if you stand underneath the target with the flag and cast other targets trying to intercept the flag. You also want to be using more manual casts, which are faster than auto casts and allow your PK defender to tinder the barricades for you if you can't do both at once. If you're a PK defender, you want to be setting up your mage most of the time. You want to be setting most of the barricades and burning most of the barricades so that your mage can easily get the casts in. And you always want to try to be ahead and be in a position where you can burn a lot of barricades, give your mage a lot of time to be able to freeze your opponent. Also, a PK def should apply damage, seeing as a mage should only be spam freezing and using freezing spells, which only max to about 30 or so. Also, try to do the attack against what they're not praying. So if they're praying melee or if they're praying range, just attack with the opposite one. But if your melee is like way stronger than your range and they always are camping melee prayer, just camp melee too, because you're bound to hit higher on them with melee than with your range style. Sometimes defending can be stressful if you're doing it all alone, but in a group of people who know what they are doing, it's really fun and easy. I have a few more additional tips that might be useful. To keep everyone organized, pick someone's clan chat to communicate in prior to the game. If you are defending, it's best to stay in your base rather than out of your base. For example, let's say your whole team rolled an area, let's just say North Rocks or something. So if your whole team's at North Rocks, a scorer can easily avoid that area by choosing a different route to score in, such as Middle, South Rocks, or Underground. And that isn't actually useful for your def, so you want most of your def to be inside your base. If your opponent does go out though, make sure you follow them and say in the clan chat where they're going. So if is people ahead, they can catch them. If you don't want to describe the whole scenario out to them and you just want people to go to an area pretty quick, I can tell you some quick lingo that you can type pretty quick in a clan chat and I'm going to list that list here as I'm going over them. Fourth is the fourth floor, third is the third floor. Spawn, which stands for respawn because that's the area which you respawn in, is the second floor and is where you respawn and your band-aids are. Ground, meaning the ground floor, so just like anywhere on the ground. It's usually within your base, it's not usually out of your base. If they say they're down to ground type of thing, they're on the ground floor. They're usually not out of your base yet. Supply means they're in the resupplying area where you get barricades and explosive potions from, so you could say they're in our supply, they're in their supply. It's at the supply area where you can supply on supplies, so it sort of makes sense. Under is underground, and usually when people are going underground you want to specify which tunnel they're coming from. So usually you usually would just use ton for tunnel, and then you would just put like a letter in front of it, like N ton for like north tunnel, S ton for south tunnel. And if you really want to be, usually you just say north or south because the route which connects them all, west and south are connected and north and east are connected. If you want to be very specific, you can do west and east tunnels as well. And last but not least, TB means their base. You can also type out what you want people to do. For example, KTB means set up defensive barricades in their base in order to stall them until we get there type of thing. I mean, it's pretty rough. You can do KTB, or your scoring site can say scoring SR or something, and like you can put tags in front of it. Some more Castle Wars lingo to clear everything up for you. Clear means explode pretty much, so clear wide or something is referring to the outer row of barricades in your base. Wide is the outer row, and inside would be the inside row. So if someone tells you the clear wide, you know which caves to go for, and they tell you the clear inside, you know which way to go for it. And same with the scoring side. If you are scoring, they're saying wide's clear or center's clear or inside, that just basically means go in that type of direction. Tinned, I've used this in this video quite a lot. Tinned means using a tinderbox on a barricade, and rocked is collapsing a tunnel underground, usually on a flag holder. You could say I rocked it type of thing, like I rocked the flag. It's gonna safe. That's another thing. If you rock a flag holder underneath the rocks, the flag should safe unless the tunnel is clear, so be aware of that as well. If you happen to kill your flag outside of your base, you have the ability to hold your flag, and the best place to bring your flag would be the north or south rocks, because if you die on these rocks with any flag, it will automatically safe to the base. So that's actually pretty useful. That's another tip if you're scoring. If you're not sure you're going to make it all the way, you can just camp it out on rocks until you can find someone on your team that you can pass it to. Another tip, if scorers in your CC are saying they're scoring and they're going to be coming pretty soon, it's polite to clear a route for them to score in rather than keep your base kit up, because there could be people right on their tail and then they could get caught and then they could eventually lose the flag, depending how weak your defense is. So it's just nice to clear a path for a scorer so you can just run straight up and not get delayed at all. And lastly, if you're the only one on defense and you're bombarded with a lot of scorers, it's recommended to get a lot of bandages so you can heal yourself if you're a mage, because you can freeze multiple times and stay ahead. But if you don't have mage, try to force them to go underground so that you can collapse the rocks on them. That's the best possible way you can do it. And if you only have one freeze, being a PK defender, use it wisely. Don't just use it on the first person you see. There's a lot more information I left out of this guide, but this is just the general basics, which should help anyone be able to help their team defend their base. Well, that's my guide, and I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.